Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Thank you for being here. Thank you for being on time. So we're going to start today's session with Johanna Amaya. Thank you, Johanna, for being here, for sharing your knowledge with us. And but first, I'm going to give the floor to Gina Galindo, who is the president of the POMS chapter Latin America and the Caribbean. So she can introduce Johanna and talk a little bit about the chapter. So welcome, everybody. Gina, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Agatha. Good morning. I am Gina Galindo. I am Associate Professor at Universidad del Norte, Barranquilla, Colombia, and I am President of the Latin American chapter of POMS. Thanks for attending this session. We are very excited for the webinar, the masterclass that we're having today. And I'd like to take the time to invite everybody to join the Latin American chapter of POMS. We usually have these type of activities, webinars, we have meetings, also we have conferences, and if you are part of the chapter, then you get some discounts when you register in these activities. Also, I just want to mention that the rate is really accessible. It's $30 per year, so don't miss the chance to become part of this chapter, which is growing, and it allows to have a broader network with other researchers, students, and professors. So now I'm just going to introduce Johanna. Dr. Johanna Amaya, she's assistant professor in the Department of Supply Chain and Information Systems at Pennsylvania State University. She completed studies in industrial engineering, business logistics, and transportation engineering. Her research interests are sustainable urban freight systems and disaster response logistics. Her research has been published in renowned operations management and transportation journals. Dr. Amaya is the recipient of multiple awards and scholarships and has been part of projects and panels sponsored by the National Academy of Science, the National Science Foundation, and the United States Agency for International Development, among others. Johanna is also part of the Latin American chapter of POMS, and we are very delighted to be in close relationship and working together. Thank you, Johanna, for accepting this invitation to give this masterclass.
Thank you so much, Gina, and thank you all for being here today. It's a pleasure, and I'm really excited to talk about this project that I'm going to be discussing today. Okay, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So, as Gina mentioned, I am part of Penn State University, and particularly I am in the Department of Supply Chain and Information Systems. Today, I'm going to be talking about fostering green last mile deliveries, which is a topic that I'm really excited, and particularly because one of the main systems that I'm interested in researching is what happens in urban areas and how we can make last mile deliveries more sustainable. This is a joint work that I did with Professor Tirsa Encarnacion from University of Missouri St. Louis and Victor Cantillo from Universidad del Norte in Colombia. So let's start a little bit on what we have seen, how last mile deliveries have impacted operation and transportation, and how that may impact communities. So as you know, e-commerce has grown significantly, particularly due to the pandemic. So before, in the last, let's say the last decade, the last 20 years, we have seen a significant increase in e-commerce, but that sped significantly between 2020 and 2022. Between 2022 and 2023, we saw a big jump, but then it's slower compared to before. Now we can say only in the US it's about almost $1.2 trillion in sales that are coming from e-commerce transactions. One of the elements and aspects that we have seen growing and changing over time is that now customers want fast deliveries received at a preferred location. It could be home, it could be at work, but we decide where to receive it. And then, of course, we want it for free. That is, we don't want to pay for shipping cost. The fact that we are having more frequent orders and small sizes actually is making us to order more frequently. So we want it free, we want it fast, and then because I know that if I place an order today, I can get it tomorrow, then I don't necessarily think about putting all my desires and likes together in one single order. I can just order repetitively, and then that frequency makes retailers to actually send more orders to my house. For example, here in the US, there are neighborhoods that receive orders every single day. So they see the delivery truck coming to their houses every single day. And in many cases, households know the delivery guy by name. So it is actually an issue that we are seeing increasingly going, particularly in residential areas that were not having or were not actually facing that before. So by having fast, frequent, small deliveries, we have more vehicles on the road. These more vehicles generate congestion. We have higher emissions because not all the vehicles used are actually environmentally friendly or are actually having low emissions in their the way of they operate or the power. And then also the fact that they are not necessarily going to a store, but they are going to our houses. These vehicles are traveling more miles. The interesting part is that, particularly in the US context, there is nothing available on consumer preferences related to last mile delivery alternatives. So this means that while in other developed economies, such as in Europe, they have a pretty good understanding of what people like, how they adopt, what are the type of delivery opportunities that could be offered to them, that doesn't actually has been translated into the US context. And that's what we want to know. That's what we want to actually do. It is not just about providing fast deliveries and convenient deliveries to the customer. It's also making sure that whatever is offered to them is also sustainable. So we started with this thinking process. What is actually available for customers? Are they actually thinking in only selecting those alternatives that are sustainable, or are they willing to change towards more sustainable alternatives if something is offered or if they are actually offered? Sometimes we believe or we expect that because people generally say that they like to buy products that are made with sustainable practices, they are also going to select the most sustainable delivery alternatives. Not much is being said about that. And also, can we actually develop programs or strategies to influence this decision-making process that consumers follow when they are selecting how to receive their orders that are placed online? So our framework is the following. So we have different alternatives that are offered to consumers, and they make a choice. We think that they actually made their choices when they are placing orders online based on the utility each of those choices or alternatives reflect on them. So we are actually thinking that consumer choices actually are influenced by an evaluation that they made on cost and benefits. And we think that if we are showing a competitive shipping cost, a decent or a competitive delivery time, and a distance to pick up, if the pickup option exists or is offered, they actually are evaluated under cost benefit paradigm, and then they are able to say if a combination of these variables actually provides a utility for them to support the choice for that particular delivery alternative. On top of that, and those are considered, we say, operational characteristics. That together with vehicle characteristics, we are thinking that the regular conditions is that we use a diesel vehicle to make deliveries. And not everywhere or not always we know the type of vehicle that is bringing the deliveries to our houses or to us. So it is important to see if by telling them that it's going to be delivered by a low emissions vehicle or a diesel vehicle, it will actually make any changes on the decision the people will make. We also consider a behavioral aspect, which is, okay, how far are we able to go to pick an order if this alternative is actually more sustainable than receiving it at home? So all those elements were used to analyze the influence of this cost-benefit paradigm to make these decisions. On top of that, we think that consumers actually have a way to identify themselves. And then we consider that this identification theory is actually influencing. For example, if I consider myself an eco-conscious person, or if I think that I only going to behave depending on how sustainable the practices are, then I would make my choices. And that might actually influence the utility I see in those alternatives. So we thought about that, providing the emissions level of the different initiatives or alternatives that would actually nudge people to pick more sustainable alternatives. We also consider other types of what we call latent variables, such as risk perception and willingness to use. So thinking about, well, I may just decide to receive it at home because I think I will for sure know that my delivery is coming. It's going to get to my place. I will not lose it. I don't have to go somewhere else and ask a third party to see if they receive the product or if my order is in good condition. On the other end, we also tested what is also called additional benefits that a person is willing to receive for making a shift to a more sustainable alternative. So all these elements were considered in our experiment when we were looking at particular delivery alternatives that were offered to people when they were placing an online order. All these were modeled using discrete choice models that are based on the random utility function. So we are actually assuming that the consumers are rational and that they, based on these characteristics, they select the ones that are maximizing their utilities. Now, in terms of the methodology, let me explain you. We develop a survey and then we analyze the data collected on that. So the survey was implemented in 2023. We collected information on the shopping habits, like e-commerce shopping habits. Then we showed the stated preferences scenarios for them to select a delivery alternative. Then we collected the socioeconomic characteristics, and then the last section was a section that would allow us to see their perceptions and attitudes with respects to environmental consciousness, risk perception, and willingness to use the different alternatives. So our scenarios had 4 delivery alternatives of 5 different variables. The delivery alternatives was receiving the delivery in a standard home delivery, used by green home delivery, which is with the use of a low emissions vehicle, pick up at the delivery locker, or pick up at a store. For those that are familiar with this, basically the home delivery, the difference between the standard and the green home delivery is just the different vehicle used for that, but they were both received at home. Therefore, the distance to pick up was 0. For the case of pick up delivery locker or pick up at a store, that means that the consumer must go to this location to pick up their orders. It could be to a delivery locker that is located in different convenient locations, like at a mall or a train station, subway station, any place where people frequently go. And then they can go with a code and retrieve the delivery. Or they can also go at a store if the retailer has a store for them to pick up the order. The different variables that we use for this was the shipping cost. So that is, how much am I paying for receiving my order at the location that I consider, the location that I want, how much time, and that is either in hours or days. So within 24 hours, between 1 to 2 days, or 3 to 5 days. Distance to pick up is basically in miles, and it goes from receiving it at home, which the distance is 0, to all the way to between 3 and 5 miles away from my location. And then 2 types of vehicles, either diesel or low emission vehicles. We also gave them the information on the level of emissions that a standard delivery, home delivery creates or generates, which is 300 grams. And then after that, for different combinations, when we are using the low emissions vehicle, we told them that we were saving between 10 and 30% of emissions in CO2. So they were actually, if the low emissions vehicle was used, then a combination, a potential reduced would be between anything between 10 to 30%. And those savings would be the savings that we use as offering more sustainable alternatives. This is an example of a scenario. So we told them that they were about to place an order. Usually the average order in the US is between $40 to $60. And then that order were only including non-perishable items. So we wanted them to make sure that it was something that they could have at a different location. It was nothing that required temperature control or anything like that. And then before actually we showed the scenarios, we gave them what is called a chip talk script. So we let them know that there is a hypothetical bias with this type of experiments and questions. And we wanted to let them know that they should place themselves as if they were actually in front of the situation in which they were actually about to place the order, because that helps us reduce the hypothetical bias, which is important for the collection of stated preferences data. So based on the given conditions, which alternative you select? So they have the 4 alternatives and then the variety of attributes, the levels on the different attributes. We wanted to make sure our 4 alternatives were considered competitive. Some were faster than others, some were more expensive than others, but then at the end, we show this level of emissions that you will be able to save compared to the standard home delivery, which is the traditional method that is mostly used here. So based on the data that we collected, then we estimated a discrete choice models, and then there were 2 different kinds. One that is called the mixed logic model, and then the other one is the hybrid choice model. The first one only includes the attributes related to the particular initiatives or alternatives, and then a combination of the socioeconomic characteristics on individuals that actually influence that. And the second approach is not only including the socioeconomic variables, but also the latent variables that we talked about before. So that is the eco-consciousness and the risk perception and the willingness to use the particular alternatives. So those are more related to myself and not necessarily related to the attributes and the levels for the different alternatives. So let's talk about the data and our case study. So as I mentioned, we collected the data in the US. The study was run between August 31st and September 18 in 2023. We collected 408 responses, and we had a breakdown between urban areas, suburban areas, and rural areas. Initially, we just wanted to concentrate in urban areas, but we were really happy that we were able to collect all 3. And the nice part is that about 60% of those responses were from individuals that reside in the top 50 most popular urban areas in the country. So we were able to actually define particular characteristics that were very influential in those customers. As I mentioned, was 408 responses. 48% were female, 50% male, and 2% non-binary. We had a good breakdown in the ages. Of course, we needed everyone that was 18 and older. And in terms of education, we had they had a bachelor's degree, a little bit less than 50%. But then you had people that only had high school, some degree, some college for studies. And then lastly, that 20% that had graduate school. Okay, so in terms of the shopping habits, it was very interesting to see the different dynamics customers follow when they are working in the e-commerce or online environment. They mostly place between 6 and 10 online orders on a monthly basis, and they spend about between $20 to $50 per order, which is kind of aligned with what we gave them in the scenarios. They only order online basically because of convenience, most of them, and that they do not have to leave home. We asked additional characteristics that, or actually reasons why, and several said that they don't have to deal with people, and that they have, because this was in 2023, they have some sort of memories from the COVID times, so that they said, like, I actually developed some sort of a stress of anxiety of going to the store, so I'd rather stay at home, order online, even though if I have to pick up my order, I don't actually need to deal with the exchanges and the store and the overwhelming conditions that are bringing us people to the stores. They place the orders whenever they actually need it. There is no actually particular time in the day that they actually need to place the orders. Before it was more towards the evening, now it's at any time in the day. 78% of the people receive the online orders at home, and only 18% are actually picking up the orders. And picking up goes to a delivery locker, a store, a postal office. It's a combination of locations of where they can actually pick up. And for those that go to pick up the orders, more than half said that they drive. So that gives us another angle on, would actually this be something that could be considered sustainable or not? Now, indicators that we ask are those that were related to the latent variables. And then we saw that in terms of environmental consciousness, 11% of the respondents said that they are actually looking at products that are manufactured with climate-friendly operations. So those that have the green leaf next to the operations, or the ones that claim that the product was manufactured with climate-friendly or sustainable operations. When ordering online, 32% choose normally sustainable delivery option at least half of the time. Keep in mind that these questions are related to the attitudes and perceptions, not about the scenarios. If a retailer offers a sustainable delivery option that asks them to change the location to deliver, 35% like, no, thank you, I'd rather receive it where I want it. It doesn't matter if it is sustainable or not. But then if a retailer offers a sustainable option that takes longer, 96% do not select it. So this tells us that just by attitudes and perceptions, even though they might consider themselves as environmentally conscious, they do not want it to take longer times, and they also don't want to change the preferred delivery location. In terms of the willingness to use alternatives, we also saw that orders can be picked up if the retailer offers a discount for that. And that is 31% of the respondents are like, yes, I can pick it up if you give me additional discount. And also that they can pick it up if the shipping cost is zero. That is, if shipping is free, then I'm also willing to pick it up. That is also 27%. So these are kind of percentages of population that we can actually notch by adding additional benefits. And finally, in terms of risk perception, we notice that people are actually not afraid. So they are not necessarily using other sustainable delivery alternatives because they are afraid of losing the product or not receiving customer support. It's that they really do not see the need to use it if they can get it at whatever they want. Now, in terms of modeling, we have the following results. So as I mentioned, we test shipping cost, delivery time, the distance to pick up. And then what we found interesting is that the information on the level of emissions or the emissions that they will be saving by selecting an environmentally friendly alternative was not significant. And risk perception also, just because by telling you about, I just mentioned about the not being afraid of losing the products, risk perception is not significant in the decision-making process. However, willingness to use and environmentally consciousness, that one actually came as significant. And this is what we found. So first, we found that shipping cost, delivery time, and distance to pick up are significant and negatively influencing the utility. That is, the higher the shipping cost, the higher the shipping time, and the longest the distance to pick up location reduces the utility to go into a more environmentally friendly alternative. That is that consumers want speed, low shipping costs, and then short distances if they have to pick. Moreover, we found that they are willing to use other alternatives if extra benefits are offered. That's what I was mentioning about the discounts or faster shipping time. And interesting, as I mentioned before, let me go back, the emissions savings was not important as a variable itself. However, when we ran our models, we saw that the emissions were only significant when we were telling the consumer that the type of vehicle used is a low emissions vehicle. And this is interesting because it comes to mind something. We are seeing now more than before the emission savings that a particular alternative that we select is generating. We've seen this when we're buying flight tickets. So at least United, for example, it shows next to it the emissions, the CO2 emissions this particular flight will be generating. But nothing else is said about that. We don't know what type of jet is being used. We don't know if it is a difference in the fuel, nothing. If we put this information by itself in a delivery alternative, people might not understand what saving 30% of CO2 emissions mean. But if you are telling that you are saving that because you're using a low emissions vehicle, that becomes relevant and that people might understand. So now more than before, consumers are more aware of electric vehicles because now even passenger vehicles are electric. But also they can say like, well, I'm using this type of vehicle to receive my delivery, then they are saving. So it is like I'm actually being able to put two and two together and say like, this is more environmentally friendly. And finally, all those that consider themselves environmental conscious, then they also tend to shift people towards more environmentally friendly or sustainable initiatives. So self-identification, it's influencing the delivery choices, same as cost, speed, distance, and the extra benefits. So how we put this in words? Well, first, consumers prefer to receive the orders at home. The top one choice in our modeling was green home deliveries, followed by standard home deliveries. What that means for this type of customers that were part of our sample, convenience is the most important aspect. So they want to receive it at home. If the green option is not available, I'm not going to pick up the order. My default option is to receive the standard home delivery, even if it is coming in a vehicle that is generating more emissions. Now, in terms of pick up the orders, the last option that the consumer selected was pick up at the delivery locker. This might be due to multiple factors. One, people here in the US are not necessarily as aware of delivery lockers. The delivery lockers that are available are mostly related to the private, and they are mostly related to the retailers. That is, there are Amazon delivery lockers, and if you are buying on Amazon, you have that option. But if you are buying from somebody else, you might not have the option to pick up at the delivery locker. And the density is also sparse. So they are more densely located in big urban areas with large density population, but they are not necessarily as available for other areas that I might not have as populous. So there could be a way to offer more what is called common carrier delivery lockers that are not tied to any entity. Anybody can use it, and then that might actually nudge consumers to go more into that particular alternative. We also found that women are more sensitive to cost and delivery time. Of course, women are more sensitive to budget, and also we are more desperate in receiving things closer than that, faster than the usual things. So that takes us to the higher the shipping cost, the lower the probability of a woman to select a green home delivery. Moreover, we saw that there is a willingness to use delivery alternatives, but usually women, again, if they get the extra benefits. Women, people with medium and high income, big households, and also those that are more educated. The extra benefits mostly are active on these consumer segments. And finally, consumers are not necessarily not influenced by the emissions. They are influenced by the emissions when we know the deliveries are going to be made using low emissions vehicles. And finally, this analysis took us to estimate the willingness to pay. So we understood that we found that consumers are willing to pay to enhance convenience of deliveries. But the good news is that they are willing to pay. That means that you can provide convenience, but you can actually get revenue tied to that that you can use to adapt your fleet or your operations to more sustainable operations. So what we saw is that between 67 and 95 cents, consumers are willing to pay per delivery for savings of about 30% of CO2 emissions compared to the regular standard delivery, because you know that you will be using a low emission vehicle. So if you're telling the consumer that you're using a low emissions vehicle that is saving about 30% of the CO2 emissions, which were the scenarios that we presented, they are willing to pay between 67 and 95%. And this is because we have in our mixed logic model, we have characteristics such as gender and income that affect the willingness to pay. So they are also willing to pay to get the product faster and to get it at a closer location. So if they were going from 1 to 2 days to less than 24 hours, they are willing to pay 71 cents. If they were going from 3 to 5 days to less than 24 hours, they would pay more than double of that, 174. If they were able to go from 1 to 3 miles to pick up to get it at home, they would be able to pay 65 cents, which is similar to the convenience on the emission save. But also if they were able to save 3 to 5 miles to get it at home, then they would be able to pay a little bit more than double, 153. So at the end of the day, it is a matter of understanding what are the perceptions of the customers, how much they're willing to pay, and how you can adapt these findings to recommendations that the different stakeholders will be able to implement when designing the delivery alternatives. We also found that, and that's similar to what I was mentioning before, the best alternative or the most preferred alternative is green home delivery. But when that one is not available, they go towards the standard home delivery. So the substitute alternatives are green versus standard. And then the other two substitute alternatives are store pickup versus delivery locker pickup. So once you increase the attributes of green, the deviation or the elasticity tells you that consumers will go to the standard one. And when you increase the cost for store pickup, people will go to delivery locker first instead of just going back to the other alternative. So there might be some information that we can use from this to nudge the consumers to more green alternatives. So based on these findings, we provided some recommendations to the different stakeholders that could be involved in these operations. So first, on the left, the table shows all those that are directly coming from our analysis, and the right-hand side table are considered supporting initiatives because we consider these actually would help us nudge more people towards the more sustainable alternatives. We group these initiatives in 3 categories: demand management, supply management, and stakeholder engagement. The first one, the demand management ones, are they initially trying to foster behavioral changes towards sustainable alternatives, foster the use of these alternatives, and then provide these alternatives more widely offered to the customers. First, we think about providing incentives for using these alternatives. So this is what we call the additional benefits of discounts, free shipping, etc. And this is something that could be done by retailers. Also, showing information about the service providers or carriers that are actually using these particular types of low emission vehicles, and if they are doing any additional efforts on being more sustainable in operations, that also could be fostering more of those changes towards the sustainable alternatives. And of course, on the case of the retailers, and that's something that is really important for them, is avoiding the use of delivery times. If that is a necessary condition, then they should charge more for the fast deliveries. Because if I don't have to pay for getting it tomorrow, but that option is not offered to me, then I will not select it. But once you start getting that option available and it's for free, most likely customers are going towards that. I'm going to the fast one. It doesn't mean that I need it tomorrow, but I can do it because it's free. And that's the perception that many consumers have. Also, we recommended the offering sustainable options to consumers that are mostly located in urban areas and to those consumers that are high income. Why? Because these are the types of consumers that are more willing to shift to other alternatives. So you can actually use offer them first and then see how they react to the different offerings. And finally, offer delivery options using dual emissions vehicles, but it's a work that has to be hand in hand between retailers or shippers and the carriers that are taking that. On the other hand, in terms of supporting initiatives, we are actually thinking that because we're providing all these conveniences, maybe we can establish, and I think Amazon started doing this, they offer what is called the delivery day. So a consumer placing all kinds of orders during a period of time, they select when they are going to receive it, and they get consolidation of orders in one shipment or in a smaller number of shipments, because it all depends where that one is coming from. And then analyzing the option to add a tax or a delivery fee whenever orders are placed. So if your orders, depending on the number of shipments, you place multiple orders and you get an additional fee on the number of orders you place, that might actually nudge consumers, because they are so sensitive to cost, to actually reduce the number of orders and then do it more consolidated into larger orders. And finally, in terms of demand management, design a recognition program for those green consumers, because we want them to continue doing what they're doing. We just don't want to de-incentivize them. In terms of supply management, we consider that partnering with service providers that are using low emissions vehicles is key. And there's also a work that has to be done between retailers and carriers when they are actually selecting their contracts, if the fleet should or should not be part of that negotiation, and if they could be the low emission vehicles that would actually support the implementation. And in terms of a stakeholder engagement, where you need decision makers, retailers, and carriers, supporting the adoption of low emission vehicles require providing subsidies and also make infrastructure for this type of vehicles to operate. And that is something that has to be done by multiple stakeholders. And finally, establishing public and private partnerships for what could be potentially more adopted here in the US is the delivery lockers, particularly those are common carriers that they are not private. They are operated by a private entity, but any carrier or shipper can actually use it, and they make customers more aware of this potential alternative that could be more environmentally friendly compared to receiving their deliveries at home. And that's what I have for today. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. I think we have 15 minutes for that.
Great. Thank you, Johanna. Thank you for the great presentation. So you have two options if you want to talk to Johanna. I'm sorry, I don't know what I did with my camera. If you want to talk to Johanna, you can just raise your hand or open your mic and just ask your question. Otherwise, if you want, you can write it in the chat and we can do the question for you. So the floor is for the public. John.
Hi, Johanna. Nice to see you.
Hi,
Nice presentation. Very interesting. I have a quick question. How do you think their actual habits are affecting the results? Like, let's say they might be willing to pick up from the locker, from some local station because they are driving an EV, or because they will be biking there instead of having the diesel like delivered to my place. Is that something you were able to capture? Is that something that you think is affecting them?
So one of the things I think it's actually that those characteristics are coming from the fact that people are located in urban areas versus non-urban areas. Why? Because, for example, in urban areas, people are more used to walk and to walk longer distances. And also they are more used to being able to be more exposed to different technologies that are implemented. So those characteristics definitely are captured by that. We ask about vehicle ownership, if they actually have a vehicle. We didn't ask about the type of vehicle that they drive. But vehicle ownership did not become anything relevant. It was more about income level, education, and gender. So those are definitely relevant characteristics on that. And the fact that where they live is also another external factor that influences their decisions. Something that we didn't ask, and when we were working in the paper, We didn't ask if when they pick their orders, that those 58% that say they drive, we didn't ask them if they drive as part of the already planned trip, or if this is a specific trip just to pick up. Why? Because if it is part of a chain that you know that you are doing no matter what, it's not negative compared to just doing a trip to pick up. Okay, so this is something that we didn't ask, and we think is a very worth exploring, because in some cases, what literature has shown now is that if they are driving, then they are not doing any benefit. But they are ignoring the fact that there is a big shipment going from the distribution center to the store, or from the distribution or a fulfillment center to the delivery locker. We are increasing drop density, and that is significantly more, saving more than me just going 1 mile to pick up my my order at the delivery locker. So I think those premises definitely require additional research because of that, because there is this omission on the operational savings that are coming through the supply chain compared to the just trip going into the location.
Yeah, that was going to be also another comment in there. Like, it's probably more efficient that a car or truck is driving through the communities and delivering than me just going there for the sake of picking up my new package. But yeah, very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, John. I don't know if there is any further question. You're welcome to open your mic or just raise your hand if you want. Hello, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Good morning, Johanna. Johanna, the presentation is really, really awesome. I really, really enjoyed. Whatever you say is very clear, and this study is really, timely. So people, needs, this kind of study, especially researchers in the field of sustainability. Thank you so much, Johanna, for presenting, your findings here in this forum. I have a couple of comments. It's not a question. I seek some kind of clarification from you, Johanna. The first one is usually, so whenever we develop a hypothesis, the hypothesis is, should be very, very straightforward. I saw that you proposed, you came with the two hypotheses, but hypotheses did not tell directly whether it's going to negatively influence or positively influence, right? So usually, if that is the situation, usually what we come up with is a research question, or we come up with a proposition. So that's what I have seen in journals. What is the reason behind proposing hypothesis? It's a simple clarification.
Oh, yeah. So in this one, the way that I put it in the presentation, we're just like, we think that they are influenced in this way, like by these elements. I didn't put the directions, and I think that's why when you saw the 1A, 1B, 1C in the slides, let me see, this one, let me share first. So when you see this one that has A, B, D, whatever, so actually in the paper, they are written with directions. Okay. So we actually thought that if the distance is longer, then there is this reduction in the utility, so it should be negative for selecting the most environmentally friendly or the most sustainable initiative. Same with delivery time. People are not necessarily liking delivery time, so they want fast, convenient, and free. So all these three were negative, for example. We also thought that if we provide, if people have some characteristics of risk perception or high risk perceptions of risk, it reduces the utility. So we also thought this one was negative. In the case of emissions, we thought that it would be positive, and actually it became non-significant. See, and this one was, we thought it was negative and it was non-significant. For environmental consciousness, we thought it would be positive and significant. But we were thinking that they would actually have some sort of nudges coming from the willingness. So if you give them some extra things, you would be able to nudge them to experiment or be more willing to use those particular initiatives. Gotcha. So I didn't put it here, but they had the direction.
Gotcha. So sub-hypothesis has the direction. And on the clarification, I have a couple of clarifications I need from you. The next one is about, you mentioned in the result sections about women. Women shopping behavior. Here in your model, conceptual model, I don't see any variables related to gender. So why, you propose why woman-related findings, in the result section? I'm just curious.
So let me see if I can go back to this one. So when you develop Latin variables, the socioeconomic variables are influencing the Latin variables. So when we develop our hybrid choice and mixed choice, they all have socioeconomic variables in it. If they were just the attributes of the alternatives, they will not include socioeconomic variables. So the ones that were actually important in our results were gender and income were the most influencing for, and then because the Latin variables are, let me see what, willingness to use and environmental consciousness, these variables activated here. That's why we saw that women are more women are more sensitive to cost, and that women, high income, and more educated individuals are more willing to use. So those are the characteristics that are influencing the Latin variable as willingness to use these particular initiatives.
Gotcha. So the gender is not, did you use gender as a control variable, or
it was actually part of this specification.
Specification. Gotcha.
Yes.
And okay, so third one, you mentioned about willingness to use construct. I have a difficulty to place whether it should be part of self-identification theory or it should be part of, the first one, the cost
benefit.
The cost benefit, So I saw that you mentioned some purple dotted, broken lines. So I thought that goes to cost benefit program.
It is.
It is. Oh, it is.
Once that one goes to cost benefit, the self-identification only goes into environmental consciousness.
Oh, okay. Now, what is the reason, or why did you mention it? Why you did not mention risk perception, willingness to use under cost benefit paradigm? Why
okay. So what happens is, what we consider is that willingness to use, because the indicator questions that were part of willingness to use are by, can you think about changing your selection if the retailer does something different? So if a sustainable option is offered, you would select it even if the retailer gives you a discount. Or if a sustainable option is offered to you, you will take it if it is for free, or you would take it if it is faster. So all those are related to extra benefits that are being offered to the individual.
Oh, I got you.
I got you. Into this one.
Oh, in the model, why you did not mention under cost benefit paradigm? Why did you keep it out of that box? That's what I always.
Oh, okay. No, they are part. The only one that is about is self-identification is environmental consciousness.
Okay.
Maybe when I was talking that they came in a different order, but yes.
Thank you so much, Johanna.
You're welcome.
Perfect. I don't know if there's any other question. We have time for one more if you want. We are all good. We have some comments here about there is a question from Daniel. He's asking, do you have any reference to delivery strategies like same day versus next day during the insights definition?
So when we look at, we propose the different initiatives, we look into less than 24 hours, and that is same day. And then 1 to 2 days would be the next day, because that is a standard here in the US. You get it within a day or in 1 to 2 days. Those are the main breakdowns. We didn't put anything as same day versus next day. But we look at the different alternatives, and the 1 to 2 days were actually within the same category.
Great, thank you. Okay, so thank you, Danielle. Okay, so I think we're done here. Thank you so much, Johanna, for your presentation. It was very nice. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Hopefully, this is gonna start new collaborations and new contacts. The idea of this event is to generate a network inside the POMS network and, of course, outside as well. So the invitation that Gina made you at the beginning of the event is here. So we are very welcome to be part of this great chapter. Hopefully we're gonna see you soon in other events. And again, thank you, Johanna. It was very nice to see you again. And hopefully
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah,
For anyone that would
yeah.
like to contact me, I just put my email address in the chat, and I feel free to reach out or ask any questions that you have.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you, everybody. Thank you for your presence, and see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Bye.